From whence we came, our history runs deep. We built this legacy, remember their names. They shed blood and tears, overcame their fears and shame, so that things would be different, determined to usher in change. For the children to do better and remember from whence we came.
First name is Glatin, Glatin, but I go by Alex Crittenden. My mother's first name was Georgia. My father was LaCharles, Lacharles.
Okay. And where were you? Do you know where your parents were born?
I think both were born in the state of Arkansas. When I was taken in by my aunt and my uncle, the true story, I just knocked on the door and I said, "No, I've got no place to go. Can I live with you?" And my aunt told me, she said, "Come on in here, boy." And she said, "We have one rule in this house. Don't bring reproach on the family."
Mm-hmm.
And they took me in. I had my own bed to sleep in. I had a warm bed to sleep in. I had balanced meals every day.
Mm-hmm.
I had discipline. I was not, restrained. I was a young man, and I was used to kind of doing things my own way. They didn't put restraints on me. She gave me one rule.
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure that out.
Right.
When she said, "Don't bring reproach," that covered a lot of territory.
Yes.
So, I remember close-knit neighborhoods, families looking out for each other. I remember people who would reach across the fence and borrow a cup of sugar,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
borrow a cup of flour. I remember just times when I remember a time when you could make ice cream from the snow. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have a lot of snow in Arkansas, but if you had snow, you could actually make ice cream. You can't do that now because of everything in the atmosphere. But remember, the men, the women in the neighborhood, they knew how to really barbecue, how to go out and how to smoke barbecue, how to preserve meats in a smokehouse.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, how she could can food that would take the family, through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember wax that she put on top of the mason jar and seal it. I if my life depended on the day, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But our parents then, they made the best of what they had. That's why I was born and raised right there in Texarkana.
Mm-hmm.
Elementary school, middle school, high school, left there and went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, Arkansas. At that time, it was called Arkansas A&M.
You said you went to college there, so was that like an expectation growing up?
Tony, actually, it was not an expectation. I grew up and coming out of high school right in the heat of the Vietnam War.
Mm.
And during that time, as a young man, you either went to college or most likely you would end up in the armed services and in Vietnam. I have a lot of classmates, sad to say, who went to war, and quite a few didn't return.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity with a small scholarship to go to college in music. I was in a high school band. Matter of fact, I was a high school drum major.
Oh, wow.
I had one small scholarship, but it wasn't enough. It was not enough for me to actually attend college. But nevertheless, I packed a suitcase on a hope and a prayer. I went to the college, went to the registrar's office, told the clerk behind the counter, says, I'm here. I want to go to school. I don't have funds, but I'm here. She told me to report to the gymnasium the next morning, and they had tables set up. They had counselors there to walk new students through the process of applying for loans, government grants, Pell grants, and the like. And I had no idea that on that day I would actually be able to enroll and prepare for college. So that morning prepared me for the next 3 years. I started college in 1966. I graduated in 1969. 3 years later, with a teaching degree, came to Port Huron at the age of 20. I was in the classroom teaching at age 20.
So that's how you got to Port Huron? You came for
That's
a
how I got.
job?
That's how I got to Port Huron. A little story behind that. At the college, they have a placement bulletin board on the hallways. I had never been to Michigan. Never in my life. I saw a small, like a 3x5 postcard on the placement board. It said Port Huron, Michigan, now hiring. I said, well, I'll take this card. I hadn't made any plans to come to Michigan. I had an offer to go to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to work on my master's, work as it's called a dormitory, captain or whatever, and that was not appealing. Not at that time.
Right.
So I sent that postcard into Port Huron. At that time, the director was, I think his name was Mr. Sloan, if I recall correctly. We began telephone conversations, and we interviewed over the phone. He told me that they were going through a village election. If that election were to pass, they would definitely be hiring. So, fortunately, it did pass. I received a phone call to come out to Port Huron for an interview, and that's how I got here.
Wow. So,
and I saw snow for the first time in that amount. That was a shock. That was a setback. That was a set. I remember coming in on I-94, driving in, and I knew something was wrong when I saw the rear end of my car catching up with the front of the car. Hit an ice patch, but fortunately came out of the spin, and I learned to drive a little bit slower on Michigan roads in the winter.
Oh man! Oh, that's amazing. You said when you left to go to college, you just left on a hope and a prayer.
Hope and a prayer.
So what made you, like? What do you think was it? You wanted a different life, or you just, what made you go?
Well, I felt if the opportunity was there, I was not going to pass it up. And to be perfectly honest, the young woman that I had known from first grade, she had taken care of her paperwork. Academically, she was qualified. She had her finances in order. She had older sisters and brothers who helped her pave the way. And she was going to college in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I wasn't about to let her get away. I definitely wanted to, take care of my future, but the fact that she was going to attend school there, that was a extra incentive. We were both in school at the same time. I graduated in '69, and she graduated in 1970.
Yeah. So, what do they call? So peer pressure can be a good thing.
It can be a good thing. It can be a good thing. I had known her since first grade, and we dated beginning the latter part of our sophomore year in high school, the beginning part of our junior year, and it was a good match. Coming out of high school and going to college at Pine Bluff, University of Arkansas, it was something that I look back and I admired the men and women who were my teachers. Of course, at that time, I graduated in 1966. I attended a segregated school where I grew up. There was no such thing as Black students and white students being in the same classroom. That did not exist.
Mm.
I look back, I think of the teachers that we had. When you went to a classroom, Mr. Smith or Mr. Thomas or whatever his last name happened to be, he was your father.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was in control, and we had very few cases where a parent would call the teacher and complain about the discipline.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it didn't exist, but there were few cases and far between. If you were a young lady in the classroom at that time, we had female teachers who would sit down with those young ladies, and they didn't pull any punches, telling them, what to look out for and how to conduct themselves. Throughout my years in the district, I tried very hard. To be an example. I remember one occasion I was talking to a young man in high school who was talented, but he didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Smart, but he didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
He could have gone great places, didn't realize it. So one day I had him in my office, and I'll use the word lecturing.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to get his attention, trying to get him to settle down and to use his talents. Never forget, he said to me, "That's easy for you to say. Look where you came from."
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was not a minister in the church.
Mm-hmm.
My response was not one that a minister would say.
Right.
I told him, I said, "You don't know a darn thing about where I came from."
Mm-hmm.
He saw me as a school administrator every day with a suit and tie, and conducted myself professionally. He, as I said earlier, he knew nothing about being in the back of a red pickup truck going to a cotton field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He didn't know anything about me growing up and not being able to down at lunch counter and buy a hamburger or a hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know anything about me going to the movie, and me and people like me had to sit in the balcony, sit on the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know if you rode a Greyhound bus, you had to go to the back of the bus.
Wow.
He said, "Look where you came from." I gave him a lesson where I came from.
Yeah. Wow, that's good. So when you came to Port Huron, what was the school system? Was it were there any more other Black teachers or?
I think at the time, I remember, and I might be off by one or two. My wife and I came. My brother-in-law came out the year after I came, and my wife's sister. Between the four of us, and maybe 3 or 4 others out of well over 300 teachers, there was a total of maybe 6 or 7 people of color. And a lot of folk are very critical of that. I'm one who I'm above board, and I cover all the angles. Certainly, I would like to have more people of color in Port Huron. Port Huron is the the last city you come to before I-94 ends and you end up in Canada. It was always very difficult to attract people of color, black men, black women, to come this far north. Most would stop and hang in their hat in Chicago or even Kalamazoo or St. Louis. So that was always a problem, recruiting and getting men, women of color to come this far.
When you came to Port Huron, and after you say you were here for a couple of years, what did you think about the community itself? What did you think, it needed or?
That's a very interesting question. I came here in 1969. I saw something then I don't see now. I saw a group of people, older people, who set the stage, set the bar. There is so much rich history. I came here as an outsider, and I'm going to do a confession. I'll say this only because I said it to her face. This is Floyd, Helen Floyd. I remember when I came here in '69, I'm the outsider. All I heard was Helen Floyd, Mrs. Floyd, Helen Floyd. My attitude was, well, who is this Mrs. Floyd? And before she passed, I had the opportunity. I sat with her and I told her, I first came to Port Huron. I had an attitude, who is this Miss Floyd? I said, I've been here for a few years now. Just want to let you know, Miss Floyd, I know who Helen Floyd is. She's a part of the rich history of Port Huron. There are so many other names, that I got to know, people that got to know when I came here. I won't get myself in trouble by starting off with those names. I'll say that today's generation, young people in Port Huron, the city has changed. There's so much rich history. Those who have come before us, that young folk, they just don't have a clue.
What do you think is needed for the next generation to pick up some of the things that you said? Like, what do we need to bring? What do we need to bring back, or what is new that's needed?
Well, Tony, I've known you since you were born, and I will pay you this compliment. What we need is more young men like you. We need, on the flip side, more young women who would have the same attitude, the same aspirations. We have a few. I would just, I don't want to start dropping names because you always get in trouble. Someone might say, well, why wasn't my name included? We do have a few. There are a few young men. I've been in meetings that you attended, and there were men of color there who were involved in the community. There are a couple of ministers. Your father is one. I'm okay. I'm gonna start dropping names, get in trouble. But fortunately, there's a handful of men who are respected, and when given the chance, they mentor or they'll say a kind word, an encouraging word to young Black boys. And in this day and age, that is a tough job. What we need are men and women, in spite of the pressures. I like to do taglines, and this is one of my favorite taglines. Don't be afraid to be the skunk room. Speak truth. Speak truth in spite of opposition. Don't be afraid to be the skunk in the room. Speak truth in spite of opposition.
What are, like, two nuggets that you would like to make sure that the next generation, the people that are coming, my daughter, what would you want her to know about Mr. Alex Crittenden?
Wow. As an educator, I can say maybe tongue in cheek. I had no respect of person, but to be perfectly honest, again, I had no respect of person. To be honest, when I was dealing with a young Black student or a young lady of color, there was that scale, and I'll just be honest, that scale was tipped a little bit more toward if I had to spend extra time, if I had to do a little extra counseling, if I had to be a little more understanding, I would tend to do that because they started out behind the 8 ball in the first place. Now, having said that, even now, I can see some of my former white students that I worked with many years ago, and they will come to me, and I've had a couple who have said to me, I'm glad you were there, because if you had not been there, I wouldn't have high school. That's the white counterpart. So I want it to be known perfectly clear that I did not set this wall between students because of their color or race. I got to be perfectly honest. As Black students, behind the 8 ball to begin with, if I had to put in a little extra time, I would do that. I remember my wife and I were out having dinner, and I had a particularly difficult day. It seemed like everything that could go wrong for the past few weeks, the past few months, I'm a school administrator. I was just overwhelmed. So, I got to quit. My wife and I were having dinner, and a young lady from across the room, sitting with her mother, she looked over, she saw me, and she got up, she ran over, gave me a big hug, and she said to my wife, this is a white student, said to my wife, she says, Mrs. Crittenden, you don't know me, but she gave her name. And she said, your husband saved my life. Now, I'm sitting there kind of stunned because I'm not sure what she's talking about. What she was talking about, that she had gotten in trouble in school. She had gotten caught. She was underage drinker. She got caught. And the rule was, if you were an athlete caught in school, you had to go home. You were suspended, and you would lose credit for the time you missed. But for some reason, on the day I had her suspension slip on my desk, for some reason, I sat and I talked with that young lady for almost an hour. And she opened up, she talked about problems she was having at home, and she felt like the outcast. And to this day, I can't remember everything I said to her, but I talked to her. And I said, I understand you're going through difficult times. I said, you still broke a rule. I'm going to have to send you home. And she said, well, I'm going to miss all my credits. And that was the way it was supposed to be. I can tell the story now because I'm out of the district. I can't be held accountable.
Right.
I said to her, I'm going to go to your teachers. And I said, I'll do what I can. I said, you cannot be in the building. You can't be in the building. But I said, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you better make sure that every morning when I get to work, your work will be on my desk. And don't get caught in the building. I'll have to add days to your suspension. I say, come hook or crook, you make sure your work is on my desk. And she did that. Graduated. I would do the same thing. Any student. And I would have to admit, what that young Black student, that young boy, that young girl, if I had to put in just a little extra, there was no question.
Right. Yeah. I'll just say what you just said, man, that right there is a superpower that we don't in our society understand. When you just said what you did for that girl, you you did something different than what the rule said because some in your heart was saying we needed something different done in this situation.
Yeah. I learned that sometimes the letter of the law
Mm-hmm.
would hurt a person if you didn't show compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you break a rule, you've broken a rule. There has to be some consequences,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't need a sledgehammer
Mm-hmm.
to kill a fly.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I didn't know at the time. I spent time with her. I don't know. It was a God thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sat there and she told me that night when she came by our dinner table, she said she was suicidal. She had planned on going home that day and taking her own life.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I told her, look, you can still graduate. You just make sure. Don't let me catch you in the building.
Mm-hmm.
I catch you in the building, I'm going to come down on you.
Right.
But you make sure your work's on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to talk to teachers, and they were gracious enough. We just kind of skirted the rules a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Finally got that kid through school.
You're giving me goosebumps right now. Yeah, this is. I'm going off track a little bit, so this probably won't make
All right.
sense. But this is what just happened right here. What you're telling me. That is every time when I'm talking to elder anybody really, but it mostly happens when I'm talking to people with wisdom, elders. I am trying to suck up all of that wisdom and that heart that you just gave me, because that is the power.
From whence we came, our history runs deep. We built this legacy. Remember their names. They shed blood and tears, overcame their fears and shame, so that things would be different, determined to usher in change. For the children to do better and remember from whence we came.
Well, the foundation was there as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
As a, but, I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some young people at a very young age, spiritually, they become aware. That's a great thing. They get it. They get it soon.
Mm-hmm.
I had the foundation. I had, a rule in the house where I grew up. You could go out and stay out all night, Saturday night, Saturday night if you wanted to. But come Sunday morning, we had breakfast as a family.
Mm-hmm.
We had family prayer. And we don't care if your eyes are half shut because you stayed out too late.
Mm-hmm.
But come time for church, you will be in Sunday school and you will be in church service. There was no discussion. There was no questions.
Mm-hmm.
No if, but, and you were in service. So I had the background. Didn't realize then that some of that would stick later.